So I'm here with Rowan to talk about an open practice project that we just completed together. For the past year, I've been working with eCampus Ontario as an open education fellow, and the last piece of this fellowship was an open practice project, some sort of deliverable that captures the time I spent as a fellow. So I was thinking about what I'd like to do for this project, and I landed on wanting to tell my story as an emerging open educator and that process of becoming frustrated with the systems I found myself working in, and then finding open education as a potential alternative to some of the ruts that I had fallen into pedagogically. But what I didn't want to do was create just a bunch of typed words on a white page. I wanted the story to be visual, to be engaging, and based on some of the inspiration I found from Julia Forsyth's work, as well as Nick Sousanis and his amazing graphic novel dissertation, I thought maybe I could do a mini graphic novel. So I found a little bit of funding from eCampus and I put a call out, which landed me in contact with Rowan. So Rowan, do you want to explain, what you saw in that initial posting and why you reached out?
Yeah, sure. So I basically had never done a comic before, and there was a call out put out by my professor that came back to Jess, and I just decided that it would be a really good experience for me to try and illustrate a graphic novel. So we arranged a meeting, and the first thing I had to ask Jess was, what is open education? Because I had no idea, and I had to do a comic about it.
Which is so cool. I mean, the first conversation we had was really a primer to open education and me explaining the outline of what would eventually become this story. So why don't we talk a little bit about that process? So we had that initial conversation, which was me explaining what I was thinking and you kind of inquiring into open ed more broadly. And then you kind of took over. So what was that process like?
So basically, after having that chat with you, I kind of roughed in some sketches of how I thought that it should look and put everything into an order and created an aesthetic. So multi-panel pages and then solid panel pages, and then once I got into that part of creating the comic, I had to come back to you in the many meetings that we had and ask you more detail-oriented questions about the content, like what were some of the classic lit subjects that inspired you, and what are aspects of open that you found were enlightening. And then with that information that you gave me, I was able to bulk up the content on the decided things, because we had to minimize some of the content that you supplied because not all of it was relevant, and it would have created a much larger story. So
that's something that stuck out for me. I mean, I'm just dumping a bunch of information at you, and when you come back with visuals, you really focused in on certain images or emotions, really focused the narrative to the essential bits, and that was really helpful for me. And also really allowed me to reflect on, time I hadn't really thought much about. My experience as an undergrad feels kind of far away now. My first year's teaching, and then, what is open education to me? So in our dialogue, I actually got to reflect and learn quite a bit as I was sharing my story with you. And then also seeing it become this really cool visual. So that was a lovely dynamic that I hadn't really thought through until it was happening.